You're listening to ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. It's not just sports, it's a way of life.
Chicagoland Sports Radio Sports Update.
At 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, I'm Charles Prodigy Ritchie with your ChicagolandSportsRadio.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. Well, in baseball, Chris Sale becomes the first player in baseball to have 8 wins under his belt after defeating the New York Yankees in Yankee Stadium last night as they defeat them 7-1. Right now, they are currently on the road in Yankee Stadium, and that game is underway. Also, right now is Cubs and Pirates in action in Wrigley. After defeating the Pirates yesterday 9-4, it is Jeff Locke taking the mound against Jake Arrieta, and currently it is going on right now. And also in the NBA playoffs, it was the Miami Heat who forced a Game 7 as they defeated the Toronto Raptors 103-91, as they will play Toronto Raptors tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. in the NHL playoffs as we swing things over. The conference finals will be beginning that began last night was the Pittsburgh Penguins hosting the Tampa Bay Lightning. They go down in that matchup 3-1. Tomorrow will be the Western Conference kicking off. It will be the St. Louis Blues hosting the San Jose Sharks with a puck drop of 7 p.m. Then also the St. Louis Blues will be seeking their first ever trip to the Stanley Cup Finals since 1970. In the UFC tonight, it will be the debut of Christian Justino Cyborg taking on Leslie Smith at UFC 198. And then later on, the main event, it will be Fabricio Verdum versus Stipe Miocic. This has been your ChicagolandSportsRadio.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. For more information, go to BeyondAir.com. I'm Charles Prodigy Ritchie.
At 2:08 p.m., welcome to ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. You're listening to the debut of In the Zone with Sid and Charles. I am Sid the Kid, along with Charles Prodigy Ritchie. We have Mr. Kevin Lee alongside as well. If you want to join in on our show, on our debut show, you can dial the number at 773-966-2494. That's 773-966-2494. And today we're going to have our special guest from the Chicago Eagles, Charles, at 2:40. Tell us about it.
Yeah, that's right. I actually had the pleasure of meeting her on numerous occasions. If you ever caught my show Primed Up back in April, I was able to have this lady, none other than LaDonna Ray. She's a public relations specialist who not only does with the Eagles, but she also covers the CIFL and does a lot of work with some other ventures as well. So we're going to be having her and one extra special guest. It'll be Julie Harshberger, first ever women's football player in the CIFL, who's actually a field goal kicker right now, a place kicker. So we'll be having those special guests come on at 2:40 at the bottom of the hour. And stay tuned. Look forward to having a great conversation with them.
Yeah. And also coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about some baseball, not just Chicago baseball, which both our teams, the Cubs and White Sox, are currently in action. But we'll go around the league to see what other teams are doing around Major League Baseball. Coming up in our next hour at 3 o'clock, we will be talking about the NBA playoffs. In particular, the Western Conference Final is now set between the Golden State Warriors and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Is Tim Duncan, who's a member of the San Antonio Spurs for the moment, did we see his last game on Thursday? We'll have our answers coming up, and we'll preview tomorrow's Game 7 in the Eastern Conference semifinal between the Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors. Of course, in the other semifinal series in the Eastern Conference, Cleveland swept away the Atlanta Hawks by the 4-0 series score, and so we're going to talk about Cleveland as well. And I also want to bring up the question for Golden State. I'll ask it now, but ponder it for later. By the way Golden State plays, in terms of shooting the 3-point shot because they are so dominant, are they ruining the game? I'll have my answer coming up later. And also at 3:20 we'll have Charles Podium, Prodigy's Podium. Thank you, Prodigy's Podium. You want to give a preview for us?
Let me just put it this way: Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get it on! Come on!
So there's a little preview here. His segment coming up at 3:20. After the 3:30 update, I will have what's on my mind, and I gave it a tease on the Dean Davis show, and it's about Dwight Howard, where he should fit in terms of a team that he should go to for his best chance to get a ring. So I have my thoughts on that coming up after the 3:30 update. And at 3:40, we'll go around with trending topics and other subjects we have missed from today's show. As usual, you can reach us at 773-966-2494. That's 773-966-2494. You can reach me on Twitter at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Charles, where can the lovely people find you on the Twitter?
They can actually find me at Prodigy Richie on Twitter.com. Also, too, I just added a few in our blog posts earlier this week regarding the UFC. You can also follow me at charlesprodigyrichie.wordpress.com.
And Mr. Kevin Lee, where can the people find you on Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter at Kevin_Lee93. That's Kevin_LEE93.
And before we take our first break, I just want to welcome everyone to our debut show of In the Zone with Sid and Charles right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. I just want to give you, the listener, the jacked up about what this show is going to be about. We're on every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. I just want to say this. We're going to give you our best opinions. We're going to give you all the information that you need in terms of the world of sports. But most importantly, we're going to have fun. Are we going to touch on subjects outside the sports world? If it's really necessary, we're going to do it. But the objective of the show is to have fun and give you our opinions to what's going on in the sports world.
Yeah, no doubt about it, though. And I think this will be a fun new era going forward. And look forward to have some fun as you usually do. And
also, before we head out, congratulations to Xander Morgan. I heard that he took a spot in California. I know he did his last show on Thursday, I believe, with Across the Board. You can hear that show on Thursdays from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. I know he's moving on to bigger, better things. He was part of the Saturday afternoon crew with us for the last few months, so we wish him the very best. So now you have us. We're going to bring in the fun aspect of sports talk radio. You hear on all these other airwaves, different styles of it. We're just going to bring our flavor to it. Our personalities, our flavor, not just what are from our opinions, but to the music and just to the whole vibe of the show. We're just going to bring the fun aspect to the show. So everything should not be taken so seriously.
Yeah, and just, you know what, it's just Saturday afternoon weekend fun, just work a hard weekend. Also, just can't wait to see how the NBA and the NHL playoffs are going to shape up the rest of the way here. And I don't know about you, but the only other exciting thing I got to think of for tonight, UFC, Chris Cyborg, the moment has finally arrived. See how she does. Is it too little, too late? And will we ever possibly see the matchup that a lot of people have been waiting for? Her versus Ronda Rousey, or even arguably versus Holly Holm, who just recently lost the belt. Continue to see how she makes her transition to the UFC over 3 years in the making.
Also, when we following our UFC talk, we're talking about the NBA playoffs coming up in the next hour. I was complaining about this when I was on the air a couple of weeks ago, that the NBA playoffs have been stale, but as the second round has progressed, it's been getting very interesting thanks to the Golden State Warriors and the Oklahoma City Thunder playing some of the best basketball of the season. Of course, Cleveland's dominating right now, coming out the Eastern Conference, going a perfect 8-0 record so far in the NBA playoffs. Right now, we have to take our first break. When we get back, we'll talk some baseball, Major League Baseball action, and especially from both our Chicago teams, the White Sox and the Cubs. You're listening to In the Zone with Sid and Charles, only on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Welcome back to In the Zone with Sid and Charles. I am Sid the Kid along with Charles Prodigy Richie. Mr. Kevin Lee is here as well. You can dial us up at 773-966-2494. That's 773-966-2494 to join in our baseball talk. Right now, both our Chicago teams, the White Sox and the Cubs, are both in action right now at the end of 8 innings in New York City. The Yankees lead the White Sox 2-1. We'll have your postgame coming up later on this show on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. And bottom four on the north side, the Pirates are leading the Cubs 2-0. Right now, we'll switch into White Sox talk. Right now, as I mentioned, they're in action in Game 2 of their series against the Yankees. Of course, last night, they defeated the Yankees in Game 1 of the series by the score of 7-1. Chris Sale pitching 9 strong innings for a complete game, giving up just 1 run. He struck out 6 while just giving up 6 hits on 99 pitches. And Jimmy Rollins belted his third home run of the year last night. But early in the week, they lost 2 of 3 games to the Texas Rangers. I'll say this right now: the White Sox bullpen, they're struggling, but I think it's just a bump in the road. Just listening to other outlets here in town, some fans are getting concerned already. Is this the turning point where the Sox will make their downfall, or will this team fall? Let me tell you, this team is going to be good. I said this on D and Davis show, whether I think it was on air or off the air about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'll give you my official opinion about the White Sox, where I think they're going to be a playoff team on Memorial Day, where they take on the New York Mets in New York City, because that week they'll play at New York and at Kansas City. And I'll give you my definite opinion then. But I will say this, watching the White Sox this week, they are a good team, but I'm not going to put the cart before the horses just yet, because in the AL Central is not as great as it once was, because Detroit's struggling right now. Cleveland's is right behind the Sox, and the one team I'm afraid of, I hate to use that word, I'm afraid of, and they're the defending one champion, Kansas City Royals. So I will not count them out. Now, if the Sox stay healthy and play consistent ball, can they be in this race all season long? Yes, they can. Am I jumping off the bandwagon right now if I was on it? No.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing, though, too, and that just shows you a real difference in reality, folks. Anybody who lives in Chicago, grows up in Illinois, difference between South Side baseball and North Side ball, and that's a testament to the White Sox fans. Not disrespecting or anything, but what I will say these 5 words: TCOB, take care of your business. And when they've been taking care of their business, look at what they've been doing this year. I mean, they are third in the AL in fielding, which has been their MO since the late 90s, since the Kenny Williams tenure. If you really think about it, or they're 7th overall in the league, ranked in that fielding category. Also, pitching, the biggest thing, the biggest bullet so far that's being thrown right now. I mean, you're number 1 in your league right now with 3.13 ERA, and you're 4th overall in the league. I mean, that's contributed a lot with Chris Sale, who's 8-0 right there. You have Matt Latos, who also has around 5 games. And then you also got one more pitcher on there who's actually pitching today for the White Sox. I believe that's Jose. Yep, Quintana. Thank you very much, Kevin. Who's actually 5-1 right now. And you know what? That's where you start the basics off. I mean, I wouldn't say just panic just yet. I mean, not always how you start, but how you finish. But at the same time, too, after a while, you do want to have yourself a good start. You want to set the table. You want to set the standard early. And you look at the division right now. I believe they're about 5-6 games up in the American League Central. So a lot could still happen between that time. But, again, I always will preach, I don't care how much you finish, that's true at the end of the day. But setting the start helps a hell of a lot in these situations.
Yeah, that's the truth. And as a White Sox fan, as a Cubs fan, I will say I appreciate what the White Sox are doing. But aside from pitching, Matt Latos is coming down to earth, and Jose Quintana, he's having his struggles. Even today, the Yankees only put up 2, but they hit him pretty decently. But luckily, White Sox, like you said, have been fielding really well as I've been watching. The White Sox need a bat. Ty Frazier is, heating up. He didn't start the way they would want him to start, but luckily they had Austin Jackson and players like that to really help them out. Now, they say you can't lose the division this early, but you can't win a division this early, but you can definitely lose it. The Royals are 6 games under 500, and they just put about 40% of their roster on the DL. So the Royals are kind of in a bad place right now, and I think the Royals, as we come into June, it's time to start. We might lose the division. So I think the White Sox have a good chance of this hot start. If they do come back to earth, I think they've given themselves enough cushion to be able to stave off the rest of the division as the season progresses.
Yeah, speaking of the Kansas City Royals, or the White Sox, not to jump too far ahead, but the Kansas City Royals will make their first trip to Chicago next weekend on the south side. That's May 20th through the 22nd. And the following weekend, on Memorial Day weekend, the Sox will go to Kansas City for a big 4-game series. That's Thursday, May 26th through Sunday, May 29th. Right before Memorial Day, they go to New York to play the New York Mets. And I said it on the Dean Davis show. Then I'll say it on this show, on our debut show, In the Zone with Sid and Charles, that you'll get a real good feel how this White Sox team is. Are they for real or not? So, and I said this to a couple of people earlier this week. The White Sox usually beat good teams at the end of the season when they're 20 games out. I want to see them beat the good teams now while they're ahead. Like you said, Kevin, you had that cushion with the 5-6 game lead over Kansas City and Cleveland in the AL Central. Can you beat the good teams when they count, not when you're out of it? When you're out of it, no one cares.
Right.
I want to see the Sox beat the good teams now when you have that cushion, because you're going to play those teams coming down the stretch, and when you wrap up that playoff spot, should this Sox team stay healthy and play consistent ball, head towards clinching that division title or that wild card spot. I want to see them how they compete against those teams. And Charles, you mentioned about the starting pitcher earlier. It's been going good right now. Carlos Rodon has fallen off a little bit, but I think he's going to pick it back up. He needs to pick it back up. They released John Danks about a week and a half ago, and they definitely need a fifth starter, because you can't keep throwing these games away. Now, they won their fifth starter spot game Monday at Texas, but of course the last 2 games in that series they lost due to the fatigue of the bullpen. But I believe that the Sox need a fifth starter, and it doesn't hurt to add another bat.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt to add another bat, but you know what the funny thing is too, I mean, they're also looking to possibly add another pitcher to their rotation as well, where it may not be necessary in the starting role, but the bullpen, and I'm talking about another than Tim Lincecum, a guy who's been struggling to keep his ERA down the last 3 years, which has been some really interesting talks. And the Chicago White Sox, along with the Los Angeles Angels and the San Francisco Giants, are looking to possibly bring this kid on board. I mean, the Giants have lost faith in him as a starter, are slowly trying to transition him over to a bullpen role. So that'd be another eye to keep an eye on right here, I think, for the Chicago White Sox. I mean, look at what you did 7 years ago, too. I mean, you had Jake Peavy right there. I mean, who's to say history won't repeat itself right there in that situation as well?
Yeah, like you said, another...
For a low role play.
Yeah, another arm in the bullpen wouldn't hurt either, Charles, because their bullpen, even though they struggled this week at the series at Texas, and I heard Steve Stone, their color commentator, say this during that series, thank goodness that the White Sox will not see the Texas Rangers anymore this year, because they're the defending AL West champions, and they continue to play like that throughout the season. They're going to give the American League trouble, in particular their division rival, the Houston Astros. Now, before we go to break, and Charles will have our bottom of the hour scoreboard update, did you guys hear about Hawk Harrelson when Todd Frazier got injured during the last game of that series against Texas?
Yeah.
Todd Frazier injured his lip and his tongue going after a foul ball down the third base line, and Hawk Harrelson just left Steve Stone hanging I'll be right back. You take over.
Yeah.
Who does that? If any other announcer, if you and me and Charles, if I just walk out the studio right now without giving you guys a fair reason why I did that, I would not be sitting here right now. I guess if you're a Hawk, you could do anything you want. I don't have that much strong of an opinion. I just thought that was weird, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it was really weird. I'm sitting there I'll be right back. What do you mean you'll be right back? Where are you going, and what are you going to do down there? You're going to go and fix his lip and stitch him right up? It was just weird. But, in Chicago, he's the Hawk, and the Hawk can do what he wants. And
now here's our bottom of the hour update with Charles Prodigy Ritchie.
Chicagoland Sports Radio Sports Update.
At 2:30 p.m., I'm Charles Prodigy Ritchie with your ChicagolandSportsRadio.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. While the Chicago White Sox are battling the New York Yankees in Yankee Stadium, as it was currently 3-2 in favor of the Chicago White Sox.
2-1. No, it's 2-1.
2-1, my bad. They are playing them in Yankee Stadium. Also, Chicago Cubs are currently taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates in Wrigley. And they, in their second game of the 3-game series, is currently Jake Arrieta going up against Jeff Locke of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Tomorrow in the NHL playoffs, it'll be the Western Conference Finals, as it'll be the St. Louis Blues hosting the San Jose Sharks with puck drop of 7 p.m. St. Louis Blues will be seeking their first trip to the Stanley Cup Finals since 1970. In the NBA playoffs, it was Miami Heat who forced the Game 7 as they defeated the Toronto Raptors 103-91. They will be playing the Raptors 2:30 p.m. in Toronto. Also in the UFC, it will be the debut of none other than Christian Cyborg going up against Leslie Smith. And in the main event, it will be the heavyweight championship that will be put on the line as Mauricio Verdum will be defending his heavyweight strap against Stipe Miocic. This has been your ChicagolandSportsRadio.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. For more information, go to BeyondAir.com. I'm Charles Prodigy Ritchie.
Welcome back to In the Zone with Sid and Charles right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. I am Sid the Kid, along with Charles Prodigy Ritchie, Mr. Kevin Lee alongside with us. You want to join in our hot conversation on White Sox baseball? You can do so at 773-966-2494. That's 773-966-2494. And the White Sox are currently down to their last strike in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium as they trail the New York Yankees 2-1. Will they have a miracle left in them? We shall find out. We'll have more baseball talk later. I just want to wrap up, Kevin, about Hawk Harrelson before we had our bottom of the hour scoreboard update. I found it kind of weird from what Hawk Harrelson did, but if it was any other person, they would be fired. I guess if you're a person of his stature, you can get away with it.
Yeah, when it comes to Hawk Harrelson, especially in Chicago, he's kind of polarizing. You either love him or you don't love him, and I think that's kind of his charm as a sports broadcaster. So it was weird him leaving the stadium, and then when he came back and he heard he was out of breath, breathing all hard because he had to go down to the clubhouse, it was just weird. But I won't read too much into it. I'm glad Ty Frazier's okay more than anything.
Same here, because when I was watching the game the other day, and when the injury happened, of course, I was watching something else. I was getting ready for the gig, and then when I turned back, I heard that Ty Frazier was injured. And I said, oh, my goodness, what the heck happened? As a Sox fan, I said, I hope he didn't have a serious injury, because that could be the whole season, all that stuff, panicking and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I was like, he really should have just let that go. I was like, but he's okay, so, Yeah,
and I appreciate players like him giving maximum effort. Of course, Anthony Rizzo of the Cubs winning the stands last year. I believe it was against Milwaukee, caught the ball down the first base side in the stands and made the catch. Derek Jeter in 2004 against Boston in old Yankee Stadium, he ran into the stands. I think he actually broke his nose or came pretty damn close to doing it. So he was famous for that. A couple other players were famous for that. We're about to hit. Before we hit our break, we want to tell you that coming up next in our next segment, we'll have Miss LaDonna Ray, public relations specialist for the Chicago Eagles minor league football team, who are 3-7 in their debut season, currently in 5th place in the Northern Division. And we'll have her on coming up next. Mr. Charles Prodigy Ritchie will conduct that interview with Miss Ray right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com in the zone. And right now, I'll just say this for our baseball teams. We'll talk about the Cubs later as their game winds down on the north side against the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'll say this about the White Sox. And now that game is going to final. Yankees defeat the White Sox by the score of 2-1. I'll say this about the White Sox. Even though they're now 24-13, they should be a team to look out for if everything goes right for the rest of the season. You're listening to In the Zone with Sid and Charles right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Welcome back to In the Zone with Sid and Charles on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. If you want to join in on our conversation, dial us up at 773-966-2494. That's 773-966-2494. And right now we have a special guest from the Chicago Eagles football team. And Mr. Charles Prodigy Ritchie will conduct our interview for us. Charles, who you have?
Oh, well, right now, joining us on the line, we got none other than public relations specialist who I've got to see a couple of occasions covering the Chicago Eagles game at the UIC Pavilion. But also, she's also got a special guest along with her. I'm talking about none other than LaDonna Ray and her special guest. We're talking about Julie Harshberger, who's one of the American first football place kicker, who's currently a free agent as a member of the CIFL Football League. And LaDonna and Julie, welcome aboard to In the Zone. How are you guys doing?
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for having us. Julie is amazing.
Yeah, well, it's great. I mean, so let's kick it off real quick right here. So, with how's it feel being like the first ever place kicker in the CIFL? I currently see she's looks like she's with the Chicago Blitz, I believe it is, right now. That was in since 2014. How's the when you look at all the concussions and stuff that are happening in football, and to be able to do that in the CIFL, how do you feel about in the CIFL right now? Is there how you handle the pressure right now, Julie? I'll begin with you.
Like with the concussions or
just in general, like when you hear what's going on in football. I mean, let alone like a lot of parents are a little hesitant with their kids like playing the game, and you see what's happening going on in the NFL. How are you feeling just being in that environment? I mean, especially for like an arena league like the Chicago Blitz. I mean, how's it feel to be handling all that right now and for this accomplishment that you're setting the stone for everybody right now?
Well, I guess as far as with that stuff, it comes with the sport, and people going into it know the risks and all that. And just as far as being able to play, I'm super excited for this opportunity to get back out on the field and kick. It's been a little while since I've kicked. I've been practicing with the team, and I'm just really excited to be out there.
Nice. Well, also too, just throw this out there. I forgot to mention this earlier, but for LaDonna Ray, since she is the public relations specialist, you can find her on Twitter.com at LaDonna Ray. And then, Julie, if you don't mind, where can they find you on social media? Can we find you on Twitter at all? Where can you be found at?
Yes, on Twitter, it's Julie Harsh 99. And on Instagram, it's Julie Harsh.
Nice. Alrighty, well, you're joining us here at Chicagoland's sportsradio.com. You're listening to In the Zone with Charles Prodigy Ritchie and Sid the Kid and Kevin Lee here. And currently, we still got with us on the interview for the call-in session, we got LaDonna Ray and Julie Harshberger. And LaDonna, how do you what do you think is like the biggest special thing you got to enjoy while covering in like your role, not only for the Eagles but also the CFL? What's been the privileges you've been enjoying while doing this?
It has been more than just football. It's been more like a family experience. Those players work really hard. They love the game, but they love working together as a team. Not to mention with our staff, we have our owners, our coaches, everyone behind the scenes working together to pull this off. It is not as simple as it looks, and then people get to come out and enjoy a great game of football. As it was said before in some of our meetings, this is not only about football, it's about people. And that's what I enjoy when it comes to being a part of this organization. That
is wonderful. Again, you're listening here to In the Zone. I'm Charles Prodigy Ritchie with Sid the Kid, then Kevin Lee. And we also got one more question from our co-host here, Kevin Lee. Kevin?
How you doing? This is Kevin. So I see you guys recently parted ways with Coach Tim Arvanitis. Is that how you pronounce it? And you promoted defensive coordinator Mel Hay as the head coach, and then added Scott Rudin as your advanced football scout, and then cut 3 wide receivers. So it seems the Eagles are making pretty big shifts. In what direction is the team trying to head as they advance to the future? 3-7 now, still in the race, but I think in 5th place. What big directions are the team trying to go in for the future?
Well, basically, with the Chicago Eagles being in our inaugural season, our initial strategy was to have a winning team. But as we have developed and grown and made changes, the big picture has to do with us being a winning organization. Yes, we've made a lot of changes. Some people have come and gone, as we know. We put out our press releases to announce such things. But at the same time, we have to move forward as a football team. So for the future, we are focused on being tight-knit, very well organized, and as well as a winning team, rather.
So in football, especially the NFL, a lot of players are seen as polarizing, but their behavior is kind of looked over based on their talent. What is the Chicago Eagles' stance on talent versus, being a good person as well as a good football player?
They go hand in hand. What I've seen, if you've noticed, before every game and after every game, we always say a prayer.
Right.
So that says a lot about what we're rocking with, for lack of a better term. Attitude is everything. You can't win games with a bad attitude. I know that it's been done in the past, but the platform that we've been based on has been based on having a grand attitude.
And once again, we're being joined by both ladies today here in LaDonna Ray, public relations specialist for a lot of arena football leagues, and then also a place kicker who's currently with the Chicago Blitz, Julie Harshberger. And one other thing, too, I'm just wondering, when you look at these arena leagues, do you think this could be something that could help to change the minds of football fans from how dangerous the game is? Do you think these could be some good contributions that could help the sport at all?
Absolutely. Not to take away from what Julie was probably about to say, being out there on the field. But, it's a shorter field, it's a lower ceiling, and there's more running and less of everything else, So I don't see anything except a great sport. I came into the football arena as the publicist, and of course I had to study it before saying, okay, I'll go forward with doing something like this, especially with the movie Concussion coming out. That is something that was in the past with the traditions of how playing football used to be. Now it's more about being safe and winning the game.
All right. Well, once again, we're joined here by Miss LaDonna Ray and Julie Harshberger, first kicker in the CIFL. And ladies, we got one more question coming here from Kevin Lee. Kevin?
Ms. Harshberger, this is for you. So we saw David Thomas go down with the MCL sprain after the roughing the kicker call from Selena Liberty. What does seeing him go down like that, does that go through your mind while you're playing, or was it just something that was so freak that you don't really think about it a lot?
Oh, you mean you're talking about David's last game when?
Yeah, when he went out after the roughing the kicking call, and you had to really you stepped up pretty well. Does getting hit that hard, is it in the back of your mind while you're playing?
No, not really. You can't really think about that when you play because they're not going to perform up till, if you have that in the back of your head, you might hesitate. You might not go through your kick. That can really mess with you. So when you go into the game, you just focus on your job, and you gotta, your teammates are going to do their job. They're going to box for you. They're going to snap, pulls, and you just got to do what you got to do. You got to focus on the kick and then just roll with the next one. So you got to make sure, you got to go in there with you got to be focused on your job.
Definitely. Ms. Rhea.
And then let everyone else do their job. So.
Definitely. Ms. Rhea, my question for you is, where are the Chicago Eagles, where are they recruiting their players from? Where does majority of your recruiting come from as far as player personnel?
Well, we have a lot of people that inquire directly through either email or on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Ileana Eagles. And then, we have our different coaching staff emails that are on our website at chicagoeagles.us. And then we have some recommendations from some of our other players and some of our other staff that may know someone who is gifted on another team and that has brought up discussion about joining ours. So there's many different areas or angles that we get our players from.
All right. Well, I just wanted to say thank you, ladies, for coming on. Once again, you can find LaDonna Ray at LaDonna Ray on Twitter.com. Julie Harshberger, you can find her at JulieHarsh99 on Twitter.com. Just want to say, ladies, thank you again, once again, for coming on the show and just give rest to you along the ways, and especially you, Julie, in your career, and also for the Chicago Eagles going forward and all the wonderful things you do, Miss LaDonna. Thank you very much.
Hey, I have to tell you, come out on May 28th, the UIC Pavilion. That's our final regular season home game. So get your tickets at chicagoeagles.us, or you can email tickets at chicagoeagles.us. We'd love to see you guys out there. We've got a halftime show that'll blow your mind.
I actually do want to check it out. So you say UIC Pavilion?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I definitely want to check that out.
Most likely I'll probably be covering that game once again on radio play-by-play. But anyway, ladies, it was such an honor. You guys, you two have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and feel free to call back in if you ever have a moment, okay? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. Well, once again, that was Miss LaDonna Ray, public relations specialist for not only the CPIFL, which is Champions Professional Indoor Football League, but also the CIFL, who you just heard, Julie Harshberger, becoming one of the first women place kickers in football. I can imagine the pressure she must have had on there just going through that, especially when you look at, like I was mentioning earlier, how violent the game is in the NFL nowadays, when you freak a lot of people out with these concussions. Just for her to even be standing out there as a place kicker, I mean, you figure place kicker, I mean, you're still less of a risk, but the bottom line is you're still putting yourself out there, and that deserves a wonderful applause right there for what she's did. And I could just imagine all the power going forward to her.
Yeah, and I give her much respect, and I piggyback off your comments there, because we all know that football is a quote-unquote man sport, but this proves that women can do anything that a man can do. And we're seeing now women moving into the man's side of the sports field. You see a couple of assistant coaches in the National Basketball Association with Becky Hammond down there in the San Antonio Spurs. You have Nancy Lieberman of the Sacramento Kings. So, of course, she was involved with the WNBA before. She has a strong basketball background, and so she brings the knowledge to the Sacramento Kings bench. Of course, Becky Hammond, she played for many years in the WNBA, and so she brings her knowledge to the San Antonio Spurs and a great coaching staff led by head coach Greg Popovich. Of course, now you're seeing the first female referee in the National Football League, so I think that ties into what our guest was on the line today that was talking about. So you're seeing women move up, and so me personally, I believe it's a great thing.
But not only that, though, too, I mean, outside of sports, though, too, with the transgender gender thing going on right now that Barack Obama's trying to support, though, I mean, it just goes to show you right there. I mean, a lot of people working together, when you grow up in the sense of the world like you are today versus where you and I grew up, and especially Kevin, 20, 30 years ago, it's definitely much different circumstances. But it just goes to show you this little saying, though, working together in the community, being willing to be open and stuff, that does come a long way right there. And I think it could shadow some fears. I mean, just even with Joe Mann and the Chicago Cubs, I mean, you still have some people who are having some disabilities right now, making friends or trying to try find a way to socialize, but they got a thing a little buddy program where they could just just hang around, play some little baseball or whatever, and accommodate them. And just working together as a team, you could really uplift a lot of people's spirits right there.
And that was a great interview that was conducted by Charles right there. Thank you very much, Charles, and thank you very much to our guests for hopping on with us today. 1 hour down, 1 hour to go on our debut show of In the Zone with Sid and Charles right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Coming up in our next half hour, we're going to talk NBA playoffs, in particular the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the MVP debate, does LeBron James have a point of most valuable player versus the most outstanding player? You find out our answers next. You're listening to In the Zone with Sid and Charles right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com.
Chicagoland Sports Radio Sports Update.
At 3 p.m., I'm Charles Prodigy Ritchie with your ChicagolandSportsRadio.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. Well, currently in baseball going on right now, it is going down in Wrigley Field. It is the bottom of the sixth inning with the Cubs with a 3-2 lead, one-run lead, as Jake Arrieta has been on the mound for this game, going up against Jeff Locke of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Also in baseball, which should have been wrapped up, I believe just went finals. White Sox lose Game 2 of their series against the New York Yankees 2-1 as Nova picks up the win. He goes 2-1 in the season, while Quintana picks up the loss. He is now 5-2 for the season. Also later on, we're going to be having the NBA playoffs. Miami Heat, who just forced a Game 7 yesterday, they'll be on the road in Toronto for the decisive game, which will be on at 2:30 p.m. on ABC 7. Also in the UFC will be the debut Christian Justino Cyborg, who will be fighting Leslie Smith. And also in the main event, it'll be heavyweight Fabricio Verdum versus Stipe Miocic. Also in the NHL playoffs, the conference finals beginning with the East, which started off last night. Pittsburgh Penguins go down to the Tampa Bay Lightning 3-1. So they trail that series 1-0. Also, the Western Conference Finals will be starting off tomorrow as the St. Louis Blues will be the home team against the San Jose Sharks. That is getting ready to start off at 7 p.m. with a puck drop. This has been your ChicagolandSportsRadio.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. For more information, go to BeyondAir.com. I'm Charles Prodigy Ritchie.
Hour number 2 of In the Zone with Sid and Charles on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. I am Sid the Kid, along with Charles Prodigy Ritchie, and Mr. Kevin Lee is joining us as well. If you want to join in on the conversation, dial us up at 773-966-2494. That's 773-966-2494. If you want to follow us on the Twitter, you can follow me personally at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Charles, where can the lovely people find you on the social media circles?
Well, they can find me at Prodigy Ritchie on Twitter.com. You can also look me up on Instagram, 08Prodigy09. And then you can also find me at CharlesProdigyRitchie.wordpress.com. And our man, Kevin Lee, where can they find you on social media, my man?
You can find me in the Twitter streets at Kevin_Lee93. That's Kevin_LEE93.
And just a quick update, not to step on Charles's shoulders right there, but the Chicago Cubs have extended their lead over the Pittsburgh Pirates on the north side at the friendly confines by the score of 5-2. Now they just had a hit batsman right now for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and now they are indeed trouble. I'll say this before we switch out to another subject. The Chicago Cubs, ever since last season in the NL wildcard game, they are clearly in the Pittsburgh Pirates' heads. I don't know about you guys, but if that's not total domination, I don't know what is.
Hey, but you know what? At the same time, too, you're saying, like, not to step on my shoulders. I don't think I have to worry about any shoulders. The Cubs are the one who, after 108 years, for crying out loud, they got to lift something off their shoulders. And I'm talking about Gorilla Huge right here. I mean, but yeah, I will have to definitely agree with you on that against the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, think about it. I mean, they knocked them out in the one-game wild card playoff game, and that's their second straight year in a row they had a first-round exit in that new playoff format. Their last playoff victory was coming up against the Cincinnati Reds back in 2013. So they've been struggling to try and find some answers, like down the stretch in the playoffs. They've just been showing up in that first game. But at the same time, too, the Cubs are the hot roller coaster right now. I mean, just see what happens. I mean, the only one concern I will throw in there with the Chicago Cubs to look out for is Miguel Montero. I mean, even though you got Steven Ross, remember, this guy's in his high 30s. I think he's 37, 38. You got to be careful. But the good thing, on the flip side of that, too, Joe Mann was mentioning about him, he's been a good field general. Almost kind of reminds me of back when Chicago Cubs had that one catcher from the Arizona Diamondbacks who came on that used to catch for Kerry Wood, Mike Pryor.
Oh, Damian Miller.
Damian Miller, yeah. I mean, that's the thing about there. I mean, you know what? Age, I mean, doesn't it matter a little bit? Yes. But at the same time, can he help play defense and, like, throw some base runners out, too? It's like, also, like, the main name of the game right there. And I really believe that. And Chicago Cubs, they just really been finding a way to handle it, and more credit to them so far. But we'll see. I mean, again, championships are not won in April or May ball. You win in fall ball is where the big name of the game comes at. I hate to keep reminding people of that though, but have to keep that in the back of our rearview mirrors right there.
We'll have more of Chicago Cubs baseball talk coming up later in the show, but right now we'll transition to the NBA playoffs. Last night in the Eastern Conference semifinal matchup, the Miami Heat forced Game 7. They defeated the Toronto Raptors in South Beach by the score of 103-91. Goran Dragic led the Miami with 30 points. Kyle Lowry led Toronto in all scores with 36 points. And on Thursday, the Western Conference semifinal matchup wrapped up between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs. The Thunder defeated the Spurs 113-99 to close out that series in 6. Now, before we get down to the games themselves, the MVP was decided this week. And of course, Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors won the MVP for the second consecutive year. This is the first time in history that a unanimous vote was given to a player for that award. Of course, all the talk this week was LeBron James from Cleveland. He kind of stepped on some toes, according to some pundits and some experts, saying that Steph Curry deserved the award, but he said there's a difference between the most outstanding player and the most valuable player. There's been different definitions about an MVP, what an MVP is. Before we give you our thoughts, here's what LeBron James had to say on Thursday.
You look at Steph's numbers. I mean, he averaged 30. I think he led the league in steals. He was 90, 50, 40, and they won 73 wins. I mean, can you have really any debate over that, really, when it comes to that award? But when you talk about most valuable, then you can have a different conversation. So, but take nothing away from him. He's definitely deserving it.
Ignoring people. So that is the theme of the last 2 years. So I'm all right.
That was also just Steph Curry following up with some comments regarding LeBron James. And you know what? I had to kind of somewhat agree with LeBron James. I mean, let's face facts real quick here. I mean, Draymond Green, I think, has been one of the other guys that's been helped carrying the load on this team right here for the Golden State Warriors. But, I mean, at the same time, too, you know what? Here's the thing, though, where I'm kind of like, being a little concerned with the Golden State Warriors going down the stretch. And, is Steph Curry going to be healthy the rest of the way? I mean, he's had that knee injury right there, as you all know from like a guy like Derrick Rose or any other athlete in sports. I think MCLs are one of the most critical things you got to definitely especially pay attention to, not only with your back, but I mean, who's to say that can't flare up again? He might miss more games again.
Here's the thing. It's two different conversations. MVP and best player, it's always been two different conversations for years, but Stephen Curry hit 402 three-pointers. And that's literally more than two teams hit combined. So when you talk about most valuable player, Stephen Curry was the most valuable player, and he deserved to win it unanimously. When you talk about unanimous decisions and everybody's up in arms about unanimously, here's the thing. Writers who vote for awards in sports have agendas. It's more prevalently in baseball, but in basketball as well. So the fact that Stephen Curry is the first unanimous MVP isn't Stephen Curry's fault. It's really the writer's fault, because there have been instances in the past where a player should have been unanimous, like Shaq, like MJ. There should have been unanimous MVPs in the past. It's good that there is now. The NBA should take this as a good thing, that they're circulating the writers who get votes so much that you lose the agendas, because you look back at some of those MJ votes and you got people like Patrick Ewing getting votes. That's pure agenda. Like, what? No, exactly, pure agenda. Patrick Ewing deserves no MVP votes, but he still got some because there were writers from New York who just didn't want Mike to get it unanimously. So this is really a good thing.
And I'll say this to piggyback off your point, Kevin. Some of the writers were sick of Michael Jordan in the 90s, and because he was the best player, he was the league. But like I said, there's hidden agendas, and of course, what the year that comes to mind, there was the 96-97 season. That was the first time that the Bulls defeated the Utah Jazz in the NBA Finals, right. And Karl Malone won the MVP that year. That was clearly an agenda against Michael Jordan not getting that award. Now, the one in 93 when Charles Barkley won it, that was a legitimate argument, because that was the first year that Charles Barkley was a member of the Phoenix Suns. He gave them the best record. Of course, they lost to the Bulls in the finals, right. But that was a legitimate argument where Charles Barkley was the MVP. I think Jordan finished third in that voting that year, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But getting back to LeBron James, and this is about the third or fourth time I heard those comments. LeBron is upset because he didn't get a first place vote. He got no first place votes. You know who have votes ahead of him? Kawhi Leonard of San Antonio. We all know that Kawhi Leonard is the best player on that team. But when he received more votes than LeBron James, of course, in LeBron's world, that's a problem. That's what I took away from those comments. LeBron James, we all know that he loves to be liked. But let's be honest here. Just like in life, everybody's not going to like you, so you just have to take your lumps and deal with it.
You know what? I'm almost starting to wonder, make a little mini debate here. Who's become more annoying all time when you hear like basketball or just sports being talked? LeBron James or Charles Barkley?
I'll say between those two names, LeBron, only because he's been doing some weird stuff the last couple of years, ever since he's returned home to Cleveland. Of course, on his Twitter, he unfollowed the Cavs, and on his Instagram, he's following the Cavs for some reason. Then he goes down to Miami in the middle of the season. He's whooping it up with Dwayne Wade, posting the videos on his Instagram and sending these weird messages to his teammates. But when asked about it, he doesn't know what you're talking about. He wants to play dumb and go the other way.
Yeah, then all of a sudden I want to disown you on Twitter when it's time for playoff time, right?
Exactly.
Start playing on the suit, start like putting our our business attire and start mean business. So just a little bit of a way to get twisted all around. But at the same time, too, I'm almost starting to question still. Who's to say he may not pull another move like where him and Dwayne Wade will team up once again? I almost have that feeling for some reason.
He won't do that again. Well, he won't do that until they win a ring in Cleveland and he's alone, because the hit his legacy has taken when he went to Miami. Not so much that he went, but the way he went with that ridiculous hour-long decision special and him going to Miami, all that other nonsense. He has to win a ring in Cleveland where he's the dominant player. He can't have any more superstar help. Otherwise, his legacy will just take an even more hit.
Lonely Bron.
Well, LeBron James will be singing something else if he doesn't win a championship ring in the next couple of years, because, like you say, Kevin, he can't leave Cleveland again, because that's going to shoot down his legacy. It's going to destroy it. And people can say that he doesn't care about that. He cares about it. He cares. Trust me. So the way he left Miami is you didn't have enough bench guys, healthy guys around me to carry this team to a championship. I'm not going to go through that again. I'm going to go to a place where I have better talent around me, and Cleveland has clearly the better talent. Of course, Kyrie wasn't healthy last year. Kevin Love got hurt in the playoffs last year, and he darn near carried that team to a championship. Of course, they ran into a better buzzsaw team in the Golden State Warriors. This year, they are perfect 8-0 in the playoffs, and we'll see what happens coming up next week when the Eastern Conference Final starts, when Cleveland faces Toronto or Miami. We'll continue our NBA playoff talk on the other side. And plus, we'll have Charles Prodigy Richie's Prodigy's Podium. Do you have a preview for us?
Just a little preview. It has something to do with a special gal. It just has something to do with going on tonight, though. Something like around the organization, though, in MMA.
That's coming up next.
Big fish right there.
Okay, that's coming up next. You're listening to In the Zone with Sid and Charles right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Charles right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. I am Sid the Kid along with Charles Prodigy Richie, and alongside was Mr. Kevin Lee. You want to join in our conversation, you can dial us up at 773-966-2494. That's 773-966-2494. We'll get back to our NBA playoff talk in just a second as we preview Game 7 in the Eastern Conference semifinal between the Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors. And plus, we'll give you our thoughts on the Western Conference final, which will start on Monday between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Golden State Warriors. Now on In the Zone, we've done this in the past on other shows during this time spot, but right now, at 3:20 p.m., we all know what time it is. Charles is getting ready. He's walking up the stairs, peeping out the crowd, dusting off his shoulders. But right now, it is time for Charles Prodigy's Podium. Charles, take it away.
All right. Well, once again, welcome back, everybody, to Prodigy's Podium here on In the Zone with Sid and Charles, and of course our swingman here, Kevin Lee. On this edition of Prodigy's Podium, I'm going to get into, it's going to be regarding the UFC. And the UFC, it's been leaked out by ESPN that was recorded by Tuesday evening. Possibility that the UFC is going to possibly sell the organization. And, there was a conversation on Fox Sports 1, with heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier and Kenny Florian, and they interviewed with the president, Dan White, and he said at the time, listen, you know what, that's totally not true as the moment right now. I mean, it's definitely got to blow out of proportion. But I did find one interesting thing, he said right there in the segment. He mentioned, though, if someone was able to come around and offer them like $4-6 billion, though, they would listen. And I kind of, question that a little bit. I mean, listen, this is an organization who fought and clawed so hard for the last 15 years. And I really believe the last 3 years, I don't know about you guys, I don't know if they're really starting to feel the heat when you've been without your star, George St. Pierre, who's still on the fence of where he's going to come back or not. He's supposed to be trained and see how he reacts. Remember, that guy, he actually relinquished the welterweight championship when he almost had that controversial loss to Giant Herrick. He ends up defending the title by split decision. So, the thing is, with George St. Pierre, there's still a question mark when he's going to come back. Then also in that same year, too, you had Anderson Silva finally had someone bring him down to earth, where he lost his first ever fight in the UFC to Chris Weidman for the middleweight championship. And, and when I've been looking at the UFC for the last few years, I really believe it comes down to this besides more than just my star power. I mean, you've been trying to develop that with Conor McGregor, but before that it was Ronda Rousey. And, Conor McGregor, I mean, acting as so big, or, Mr. Machismo himself in the UFC, trying to build up his own ego, thinks like he's too big enough where he doesn't have a press conference. Forget you, dude. You know what? You're doing more by hurting the sport right there. And I really believe, the Dan White and the Fertitta brothers are really looking to possibly turn the other way, get themselves in the bail. I'm not saying they would, do that just necessarily right away. I mean, they worked so hard to finally get their first ever event in New York, Madison Square Garden, the biggest prize you've been waiting for such a long time. And you mean to tell me, you're gonna, these reports, something's just not going right there. Well, that's it for this edition of Prodigy's Podium here on In the Zone with Sid and Charles, along with our swingman, Kevin Lee. Sid, go ahead, my man.
Thank you very much, Charles, and we'll resume our NBA talk right now. If you want to join in our conversation, it's 773-966-2494. That's 773-966-2494. Give us your predictions of who's going to win tomorrow in the Eastern Conference semifinal between the Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors in Game 7. And, of course, the Western Conference Finals between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Golden State Warriors from Oakland. Game 1 will tip off at 8 p.m. on Monday night. I'll say this about last night's game between the Heat and Raptors. The Raptors had a chance to wrap it up, but I had that feeling that Miami was going to win their game, especially being at home, trailing 3-2 in their series. Miami got it done last night, winning by 12, 103-91. Goran Dragic led the Heat with 30 points. Dwayne Wade added 23. I'll say this, even though Miami's a young veteran team and Toronto won their 7th game in the first round against the Indiana Pacers, they barely had to hold on in that game. Tomorrow, I'll say this right now, it's not going to be a slam dunk that Toronto wins this ball game. Dwayne Wade and those guys in Miami, they have all the experience in the world. Dwayne Wade, of course, is a 3-time NBA champion. Joe Johnson's been there before. They have a little bit more of a veteran core in that lineup for Miami, even though they miss a Chris Bosh and they miss a Hassan Whiteside. I think Miami has enough to get it done tomorrow in Toronto. So I'm picking an upset Miami in Game 7 on the road.
I'll definitely have to agree with you. And I think, Miami Heat, but I think at the same time, I also got to believe, too, the NBA is kind of wanting to see this where, for entertainment value, LeBron James going up against his former team that he left, who he chose to team up with 6 years ago, the Miami Heat. And you know what? I mean, that's what it really comes down to a lot of times. I think just set aside from sports, you want to see the big headlines going in there. But I feel like the Miami Heat, they'll have enough. I think they got a little bit more of a road warrior mentality, having been there, having been to the dance, on those 5 occasions right there where they only lost 2 championships in their franchise. And I really believe they'll definitely find a way to win that Game 7 tomorrow.
I definitely think Miami can win. They're gonna have to have their rookies like Justice Winslow really step up, but they can pull it out because they do have Goran Dragic and they have Dwayne Wade. Without Hassan Whiteside, it's going to be difficult, but I give them their talent. Dwayne Wade, he's in the Wayback Machine right now, going crazy, dropping 30 a game, and more importantly for Toronto, Damari Carroll's not he's not 100. Valanciunas is not going good. So really, Hassan Whiteside, it's kind of neutralized. They're kind of equal. And when you equal, you got to go with playoff experiences, which is why I'm going to give it to the Heat to pass them up.
Yeah, and I think Dwayne Wade will definitely be the key figurehead in that. Just see what they do and how they capitalize. But I will say this, though, definitely be an interesting matchup right there. I don't know about you guys, but going into this finals, as I mentioned, like with Steph Curry's knee injury, who's to say, Lightning can't strike twice? No pun intended, though. But with Oklahoma City Thunder, I think this is definitely a legit team. Even though I have picked the Spurs, I have gone on record over a month ago to pick them to win the NBA championship. But I'm really starting to believe they're becoming this one physical team, more like a sock in the mouth teeth type of team, though, that could definitely do some damage control, I think, going into this. And I would not be surprised, call me crazy a little bit, but I'm almost having an inking feeling that we could also possibly see a LeBron James, Kevin Durant NBA Finals rematch right there with the Cavs and Thunder.
I predicted that to a few people before the season got started. Oklahoma City, I thought they were going to come out the West. I didn't think Golden State would be this good as they shown throughout the season. But they did well, actually more than well. They won 73 regular season games, for crying out loud. But getting back to the present time with Oklahoma City, you brought up a good point of them being physical. It's not so much being physical with Oklahoma City, but they out-rebounded San Antonio in that last series. LaMarcus Aldridge was their go-to guy, especially in Game 1 when they blew out the Thunder by 32 points. But after that, they stopped going to LaMarcus Aldridge. They started playing team ball, which they were famous for, and they got away from LaMarcus, and they started playing team ball. Their shooting nights from the other stars like Danny Green, Patty Mills, and Tony Parker were off and on, and Oklahoma City was able to catch up on that.
I think, at the same time, too, when you look at a case like that, I believe a scenario that did happen like this, I think they wore themselves out too fast. When you have like a big dominating victory like that in Game 1, certain games you got to be careful. It's like when you win, you want to win big. You want to keep the pedal to the metal. But in that situation, I really believe they did kind of set themselves up in a way when you got like a veteran, like staff team in there. When you still have, besides Tim Duncan, you got Mal Ginobili, Tony Parker. Then you got your young guys, LaMarcus Aldridge and Kawhi Leonard. It really goes to show like how much depth could mean nowadays, especially when you got a veteran team right there trying to help bring some assistance with.
Yeah, I really think we always talk for years about are the Spurs too old, and normally they always just prove us wrong. But I really think this time the Spurs just kind of used everything they had early, and were just too much. And Oklahoma City turned out to be just too much. On top of the fact that LaMarcus Aldridge, I think the stage got a little too big for him at one point, especially that game where they lost and they started relying on Tony Parker a lot just because LaMarcus just wasn't coming through. So I think the stage got a little too big for him and he couldn't come through. But definitely, I think Oklahoma has a good chance at taking it all.
You'll hear our predictions for the Western Conference Final between the Thunder and the Warriors right after this sports update. At the bottom of the hour, it's 3:30. Here's Charles Prodigy Ritchie.
Chicagoland Sports Radio Sports Update.
At 3:30 p.m., I'm Charles Prodigy Ritchie with your ChicagolandSportsRadio.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. Well, in baseball, it's currently going down in Wrigley as the Chicago Cubs have increased their lead from the last time I provided the update. It is now 6-2 in the bottom of the seventh inning with one guy on first and one out. And also went down final on the south side in New York, Yankee Stadium. Chicago White Sox lose to New York Yankees 2-1 as they lose their second game in the series. Also in the NHL playoffs, the conference finals will be continuing as it'll be the Western Conference kicking things off, as it'll be the St. Louis Blues hosting the San Jose Sharks with puck track for 7 p.m. St. Louis Blues are looking to go to their first Stanley Cup finals since 1970. And the San Jose Sharks, who also not been in the Stanley Cup final, they're trying to look for their first one ever as they debuted in the league since 1991. They've been 25 years in the league. Also in the NBA playoffs, it was the Miami Heat going in survival mode as they forced a Game 7 matchup to go to Toronto as they will be playing with tip-off time at 2:30 p.m. And then finally, in the world of MMA, it'll be the debut of Cyborg Christine Justino fighting Leslie Smith. And also the main event will conclude the night for the UFC for Mauricio Verdum versus Stipe Miocic. This has been your ChicagolandSportsRadio.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. For more information, go to BeOnAir.com. I'm Charles the Prodigy Ritchie.
Welcome back to In the Zone right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. I am Sid the Kid along with Charles Prodigy, Richie, and Kevin Lee alongside. You want to hit us up on the phone line, 773-966-2494. That's 773-966-2494. We have been talking about the NBA playoffs, in particular the Western Conference Finals preview between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Golden State Warriors. I'll kick this off right now, and I said this on the Dean Davis Show. As a fan, I'm cheering on for Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook for the Thunder, but I see this series going 7, and I am picking GSW.
Golden State Warriors. Well, I'm going to have to... you're talking about for the conference finals,
yes.
Right? Well, for the conference finals, for the Golden State Warriors, I'll pick the Golden State Warriors, but it'll go the distance, I believe, in this one. I think it'll go 7 games, only because of the lingering injury of Steph Curry.
Pretty good pick. I've said this before. Russell Westbrook is just my favorite player in the NBA. When you talk about big men versus small ball, I prefer the big men, but I really think that the Warriors are just going to give Oklahoma City more than they can handle. So I'll go Golden State in 6.
I'll say this about one of the matchups I'm looking forward to in this Western Conference Final. The Warriors have Draymond Green in the middle, and he's their big guy, their stretch guy.
Right.
How much and how long he's going to stick Kevin Durant? I think that's going to be the matchup in this series because Kevin Durant, we all know he's a scoring machine. He can shoot as well as drive it to the basket. Will Steve Kerr match Draymond Green with Kevin Durant? If yes, which I believe so, how long does he do it?
I don't know if Draymond stays Kevin Durant simply because of the fact that, Draymond can't really catch Kevin, and you don't want to get him lost. And I really think because Golden State is kind of small, you almost got to have Draymond on Ibaka, don't you?
I would say so only because Ibaka is a defensive presence. He can add some scoring, but I was talking with my guy the other day, and he said Ibaka's kind of lost it on the defensive end. I said, yeah, because he has the pressure to be that quote-unquote third scorer on the offensive end.
Right.
And I think another key factor is going to come down in this Western Conference Final is who's going to be the third scorer for Oklahoma City Thunder, because when Durant and Westbrook have off nights, who's going to step up? Right now is a big question mark.
I'm looking for my man Anthony Morrow to come through just like he did last year, even though the Thunder couldn't take it that way. But Anthony Morrow and I think Deion Waiters can make some differences.
We're about to hit our last commercial break, but when we come back, I'll have what's on my mind. It was regarding Dwight Howard and his interview with Charles Barkley on TNT earlier this week. You're in the zone with Sid and Charles, along with Kevin Lee, right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Last segment of In the Zone with Sid and Charles right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. I am Sid the Kid along with Charles Prodigy Ritchie and Mr. Kevin Lee right along with us as well. If you want to join in our conversation for our last segment of the show, of our debut show, excuse me, you can dial us up at 773-966-2494. That's 773-966-2494. And around this time, this is a segment that we carried from the previous show, and we'll carry it on this show. It's time for What's on My Mind, What's on Sid's Mind. And quickly, I'll give you my take on the Dwight Howard interview which he was in studio for TNT's Inside the NBA. He replaced Shaquille O'Neal. He was sitting in his seat. He was joined by substitute hosts Matt Weiner, Charles Barkley, and Kenny Smith the other night following one of their TNT's playoff game coverage. And Charles Barkley asked Dwight Howard the question, why do people don't like you? Excuse me. And Dwight Howard said this, that he thinks that people don't like him because he's too goofy. He doesn't take the game serious enough. And he followed up by saying that once he tried to change his personality, people didn't like him again. Where'd you go back to being yourself? And then he followed up with another comment saying that what motivates him every day, besides people talking about him, that he said that Magic Johnson told him when he was a sophomore in high school that he'll never make the NBA. He said a couple other ex-players told him that he'll never make it to the NBA out of high school. Of course, Magic Johnson came out a day later and said that he never said that. Well, who you want to believe? But anyway, Dwight Howard, he's supposed to opt out his contract. What rumor says that he's supposed to opt out his contract this summer. Him and James Harden is clearly that they don't get along. Last year, obviously, they got along as Houston lost to the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Final. Of course, James Harden had an MVP-type season last year. This year, it was the opposite. Of course, now Kevin McHale was fired early in the season. And, of course, now that job of the Rockets head coach is now open. It's time for a change, clearly, for Dwight Howard. But the way the game is moving is not evolving around the big man anymore. So Dwight Howard needs to go to a place where he could be a contributing factor to a possible championship-contending team. He's not the guy anymore. This is not the league that it once was when he came in about 11 years ago. So one team that people said that he may consider is the Dallas Mavericks. I know they were after him a few years ago, but it didn't work out, obviously. The one team that I think he will fit in very well, and I heard another person, which we cannot name on the show, said this the other night on television, and I agree with this person. Dwight Howard would be the best fit for the San Antonio Spurs, and here's why. Duncan, I believe he's done, even after what he did the other night in the Game 6 loss at Oklahoma City. Duncan has showed his age. He's 40. He's had a great career. He's one of the best top 5, in my opinion, power forwards to ever play this game. He's on his way out the door. Ginobili is possibly on his way out the door as well. Dwight Howard can fit in well with San Antonio. LaMarcus Aldridge is there specifically to have down low scoring. Dwight Howard is one of the best defensive players in recent memory, but we all know that he doesn't have the offensive game to go with it. So I say put Dwight Howard on San Antonio. You can have the sort of the Twin Towers method with LaMarcus Aldridge on the offensive end and Dwight Howard on the defensive end, which gives San Antonio that balance on the front line, because what was their problem in this series of Oklahoma City? They were out-rebounded. You can't have LaMarcus Aldridge just stand there basically by himself, expect him just to rebound everything. San Antonio was out-rebounded by Oklahoma City in that series. David West didn't show up. Some of the other guys, Boris Diaw, he really disappeared in this series. I don't know what was up with him. So if you bring in Dwight Howard, I think he solidifies that front line for the Spurs a little bit. It makes that transition easier into being a championship contending team. What your thoughts are about Dwight Howard?
Well, I will definitely say this, though, in addition, and I hate to say this again, though, but Houston, we do have a problem right here. No, but for real, no offense. I think that's kind of a little bit of a dangerous move to be bringing a guy like Dwight Howard to a proud organization that they built up with the San Antonio Spurs. And for these reasons, I mean, there's going to still be question marks. I mean, like, who you're going to want to still keep around. I mean, are you going to still have guys like Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Tim Duncan? It's pretty much almost a lock at this point where it'd really take a miracle if he decides to come back. But I will actually, on the side of caution, I mean, he is towards the end of his career, and I have a little concerns with Dwight Howard. I mean, I hope people are not starting to view him as like a cancer to a locker room, because no offense, his last good opportunity was with the Lakers, but at the same time, they didn't help matters by any better by not bringing in a guy like Phil Jackson, which was a huge mistake and a huge game changer. Why they definitely just went mind-boggling downhill. Not even getting back to the playoffs since then. So I really, for the Spurs, just be careful. He'd probably be a good fit. I mean, hey, if you want to bring him in somewhere, I got another suggestion. How about Portland? Portland Trailblazers, a real good young team right there. I mean, you got on there. I mean, who just got lost to the Golden State Warriors in 5 games. I like to think they're supposed to be a team that's supposed to be around for playoff contention for a while. Why not give them 1, maybe 2-year run with them? See what you could do with them.
Here's my problem with Dwight Howard in San Antonio. And especially being a Bulls fan, we saw this a lot. When you got because Dwight Howard's offense really has been lackluster, and when you put him in there with the preface that his defense will then complement LaMarcus Aldridge's offense, they get stuck together, and you got to play them together. And we saw that a lot with the Bulls because you couldn't play Joe without you had to play Taj, but then you had to play Powell because Taj's defense was good, but his offense was poor, and then Powell's offense was decent, but his defense was terrible. And they got stuck together, and then when Joe went down, that's when the roster really started to crumble because then we didn't have anybody to play with whenever you wanted because you couldn't put Powell and Joe in the game together. Joe went down, and so then you had that offense-defense balance, but the problem was one person's offense was bad, one person's defense was bad, and they got stuck together, and then it doesn't leave you a lot of room for your roster to really circulate fluidly when you got to have 2 people that got to play together. And now if Dwight Howard fixes his game as far as offense-wise, and he really hasn't been that spectacular defensive-wise either to me, it might be – I just don't think the Spurs even want Dwight Howard. I don't think they like his attitude.
You bring up a good point about his attitude, but I think if he went there, just say for conversation purposes only, if he went there, like you said, Greg Popovich will stick a foot in his, if he gets out of the line. So I don't think there'll be too much of a problem there. But before we get up out of here for this week, I want to talk about the Chicago Bulls. Of course, the NBA Draft Combine is here in Chicago, wrapping up today, and the Bulls, they need a lot of help. They need retooling. They need to remake this roster, and they need a point guard. They need a big man. And they need some more shooters because what they have on this roster right now is not good. Jimmy Butler, I don't think he's going to get traded. You have Tony Snell, which we made fun of all year. Charles, you were here for the majority of it. Tony Snell has been bad. Doug McDermott has shown some signs that he could perhaps remain on this roster. Etuan Moore, he's a good backup point guard. And you have Bobby Portis, who's had a decent rookie year. He's going to show some improvement if you give him the playing time. I want to ask you guys your thoughts before we get up out of here. What do you think is the best need for this Bulls team to turn this situation around?
I think no offense. I think you kind of have to start all over again. I mean, it's probably going to be like another 2-guard position, but at the same time too, you also got to pay attention to your center and your forwards. I mean, you don't really know if Joakim Noah is going to stick around this year. And that's the relationship he had with Mike Dunleavy. So I would think for right now, if they could get a legitimate big man, I mean, if they do decide to keep Derrick Rose and give him one last chance, because I think he signed a 5-year deal back in 2011. I'm not sure if that's keeping him around for the 2017 season, but I mean, is this going to be if you're going to be stuck with him, add one more guy like that?
What's the one position, Kevin, before you get out here?
The
Bulls need to draft.
They really need an athletic 3. I really thought they were going to go ahead and get somebody like Rudy Gay earlier in the season when they were talking to Sacramento, but they need an athletic 3 and another backup point guard.
Yeah. Thank you very much for our debut show of In the Zone with Sid and Charles right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. We would like to thank our guest today, Ms. LaDonna Ray, the PR specialist for the Chicago Eagles. And what was the kicker's name that joined her alongside?
That was Julie Harshberger. You can find her once again at Julie Harsh 99 on Twitter.com. You can also find Miss LaDonna Ray at LaDonna Ray on Twitter.com. That's RAEH.
I'm Sid the Kid. You can find me on Twitter at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80.
And you can also find me on Twitter.com at Prodigy Richie. And Kevin?
Look for me, Kevin_Lee93.
You're listening to In the Zone with Sid and Charles right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. We are here each and every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. You want some fun? You want some sports with your fun? Listen to us every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com following the D.N. Davis Show. For Charles Prodigy Richie, for Kevin Lee, I am Sid the Kid. Stay tuned for more great programming right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Take care, and we gone.
side. Move down, make it slide. Beam on up to the other side. Touch up, make me rise. I got to move to the other side. Touch down, what a ride. You make me come to the other side.